Welcome to Charts Today. My name's David Linton, and today's edition for Friday, the 11th of February, comes to you from London. And what a day we've seen yesterday in the US. Inflation numbers out, and we've seen a lot of red on the screen as a result. Markets reacting quite badly to that. For the dollar, we saw the dollar jump because that's increased expectations on interest rates in the US, and that means that against the dollar, the euro is now looking weaker. And of course, we've been long-term bearish on the euro against the dollar. Sterling sitting at 135.50. So again, we saw that dollar jump yesterday, but we've pulled back because UK interest rates are now going up as well. Bitcoin sitting at $43,500, so it's fairly steady, taking this in its stride, looking like a cloud bounce in the long-term chart. Remembering this is a weekly, daily, and 60-minute chart, so my long-term, medium-term, and short-term view of the market. But the real story is stocks. So the S&P 500 index fell away, recovered. The cloud is now providing resistance on the daily chart. We found long-term support on the weekly chart. But here we're seeing this downside column, these downside target columns. This is a 1% log scale and a 0.5% log scale. Those columns were effectively locked with this rebound up, but that has locked the column, giving us the downside target some 20% lower on the market. And if we make a new low, we activate that downside target, and that's the significance. New low below this low, and then we go 20% lower. That's how the target works. So looking at the Nasdaq, we're seeing a similar picture, of course. Downside target some 30% lower on the Nasdaq if we make new lows. So these are really big downside levels to worry about. And after that big fall yesterday, we're seeing the futures down even further today. Suggests that we are going to see a little bit of a Black Friday in the US, and we're just going to watch the market open. But after such big falls, you would expect normally the market to stabilize, but we're seeing signs of further falls today. So really starting to look very toppy indeed. The end of the run there on the basis of that inflation news coming out. But we were already vulnerable because we were below the cloud already. So it puts us in that vulnerable mode. We've got a downside target to worry about. So that's what we're going to watch. The VIX volatility has jumped to 25. And so the signs really, this change in the VIX, where the fear index is starting to just gradually see higher highs and higher lows, an uptrend in the fear index basically. The FTSE future down 0.9%. The DAX cash market in Germany down over 1%. 15,000 is the critical level here. This is a really clear support level. We break that, we go much lower. The only market really bucking the trend was Tokyo, up 0.6%. But really markets generally seeing big falls. The Sensex in India down 1.2%, and the Australian market down 1%. We'll look at the energy mix in a minute. Looking at some of the soft commodities, there is a little bit of a sell everything mentality going on today, but we are seeing wheat is up 0.3%. Inflationary pressures, of course, with grains and corn as well. So we're seeing stronger moves there. Gold is sitting up 18.25, but the really big story, of course, is and in fact, precious metals pretty much across the board we're seeing weakness. But the real story is that the US 10-year yield is above 2%. So we had these short-term targets here. We're now above the 2% level. So that's really significant. We're seeing bond yields in the US and inversion on the yield curve as well. We're seeing bond yields in the US really starting to fall away, and the German bond future below that level is really quite critical there. So that's something we really do need to just be aware of, that bond markets in Germany, this is the end of a 30-year trend in bond markets. Looking at the energy mix, it's quite a mixed picture this morning, and we did put out our news to clients. This went out at 8 o'clock at the market open, so we went with all the trends and targets. We had multiple downside targets on MBP and TTF and on German power, so those were really significant, and that report went out to clients this morning. And of course, in terms of the global report, in terms of what's going on, that report's out in our news service as well. So here we see the bond, had very strong conviction about these bond markets, the yields rising, and again, metals we're seeing quite strong. So this report covers some 400 charts, 100 instruments, so really quite significant. Looking at the individual energy mix, we've got Brent crude still looks very strong in the medium term, but we did have a downside target today. We've recovered some ground on crude oil, so that's quite interesting. And of course, this has inflationary expectations. And we did put out a crude report to clients a couple of weeks ago, and we've got very big upside targets longer term for crude oil. Looking at US nat gas, we were actually neutral this morning because it was a bit of a harder call. Looked like recovery, and we've got targets in either direction. Coal is looking weaker, down 2% at 113. Emissions, we were bearish here this morning. We've fallen below the cloud. We've got downside targets, so this is pretty clear. Keep an eye on those 1 minute targets on your charts in real time. And then we've started to look at the gas market. TTF down 1.3%. MB and the level on TTF is really critical. 70 euros. We break that, and then we go much lower. So we've got targets much lower if we break below 70 euros. We haven't done that yet, of course, but we are just seeing gas markets falling away. Despite everything you hear about Russia, the fact is the prices are falling away here. Same with MBP. Of course, they're falling from still historically high levels. So really, 175 is the level to watch on MBP. And again, we put that out in our reports to clients. German power is actually up slightly this morning. So we've got downside targets and upside target. We were bearish at first thing, but it's probably turning a little bit more neutral. And Nordic power also bearish. We're down 4.5% on the CAL on Nordic power, on the quarter, sorry. On the CAL, we're down 0.5%. So that's significant as well. So keep an eye on these markets. These futures are going to be the things to watch today. And just be ready for some big falls in some of the US stocks, especially tech. There's some fairly big downside targets around. Remember, just push that T key on your system. That's it for today. Hang in there for Friday. Have a great weekend. See you Monday. Happy charting. Bye for now.